Hi, I'm Arthur, and this is part 20 in a 20-part series I am doing covering fan-favorite chapters of Space Marines in order of the Legions. Do you need to have seen the other parts to understand this one? No, but it would make me happy. Fellas, in a discussion of what is considered a fan-favorite chapter, there is a lot of conjecture in terms of options. Though there are quite a few I would consider quite popular, I think it's sometimes best to go back in time and start from our roots. A lot of people get into 40k at different eras of time. Sometimes they get into it when there are new editions, like with 8th edition. Sometimes they get into the game with the rise of a popular video game like Space Marine. In today's discussion, we will be talking more the latter than the former, and that is involving Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War. It kicks so much ass, it's actually embarrassing to see how far the franchise has fallen. It's crazy to note how bad the more recent games are in that specific series, or even the side games are, but if you want my feelings, just a quick lightning round here. Number 1, love it. Number 2, liked it. Number 3 is incredibly boring. As for side media, Warhammer Mark of Chaos is so stupid it's actually physically painful, but it's also really, really fun. And then Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Realms of Ruin, was so mishandled that I feel that the person responsible for its release, when it had at least another year of development necessary for it to have content that would be, constituting a game, should be tried at The Hague for how they butchered what could have been a very fun game. But regardless, the contribution to 40k as a piece of media that Dawn of War added to the universe of 40k is, in no hyperbole, probably one of the most significant events to happen next to the release of Space Marine 2 and maybe the release of 40k 8th edition. So, having recently replayed the game for fun, I realized something. What the f*** is this? This is not Alpha Legion, but apparently it is Alpha Legion, but also, when you play the game, they do the most meme Alpha Legion-y shit I've ever seen, but also they do a lot of shit that just completely interferes and goes against what is the pre-established canon of 40k, goes against the whole rules of the setting, and the entire game as a whole is just bizarre when you look at it from the lens that these are supposed to be Alpha Legion after we have the context of, about a decade more time to understand what the Alpha Legion are. So, I wanted to make a video to cap off this series doing something a little bit different, discuss a game that I'm quite passionate about and quite enjoy a lot, and give a brief plot synopsis, discuss the modern lore of the Alpha Legion, and then give a reason as to why they are so fucking bizarre. There is one-off things in this game that I don't think have ever been mentioned in any other section of 40k media, ever. You're gonna watch this video and rethink about Dawn of War being something that was either horribly mismanaged, rushed out, and they didn't have time to correct the lore, or you're going to adjust your sunglasses by pushing them up by the bridge and then popping your collar a little bit, just simply saying, by God, the Alpha Legion has done it again. So, we're going to do just a quick dive into the modern lore of the Alpha Legion, so as to set the stage, then we're going to do a plot synopsis and go from there. Regardless of all that, before we hop in, you guys want some gamer subs? Okay, you know the drill at this point, it's gamer subs time. No, get back here, you will consume the juice, it's yummy, low calories, and also really cheap. Okay, so now sit down and listen about how tasty this cherry limesicle mix is. It's quite literally one of my favorites. I mix a scoop of cherry limesicle with sweet 6-pack, and I call it the Bricky Surprise. The surprise is how both have different brands of goonerific art on the front, but regardless, I think the flavor is sweet, not too tart, and downright juicy, and is something everyone can likely get behind. So if you want to ride the flavor and for me to stop holding you hostage, then you should click my link in the description down below and use code BONEZONE at checkout for 10% off your order. It helps the channel and it means I can stop breaking into people's houses in order to sell juice products at affordable prices. Thanks again to GamerSupps for sponsoring this channel as always, and don't worry, I have put down the gun. So before we discuss anything to do with the Dawn of War games, let's do a brief refresher on the Alpha Legion, especially in the modern setting. So the Alpha Legion, for the uninitiated, were a traitor legion during the Horus Heresy, who may, or may not, have basically just done what they wanted instead of doing what the traitor or the loyalist sides wanted. There is a lot more to it than that, and I feel like me going at it from that reductionist standpoint does reduce it down a bit too much, but that's kind of the easiest way to see it. They sided with the traitors and did a lot of actions that led to the loyalists being bolstered and even having their resolves more or less steeled for the oncoming assault that's going to happen, which for some reason, coincidentally, the Alpha Legion did not contribute in the fight for Terra. So it is a bit odd, and it did give them a bit of a reputation for being kind of playing both sides against the middle. I personally have the feeling that they are neither as 100% foolproof as people think they are, nor are they as adept at succeeding as people think they are. So I think in a lot of these instances, it was literally just them being a little bit stupid and just subterfuge not actually mattering. But I am also like at least 30% sure it was potentially a ruse to fool the traitors, that they were actually just idiots. I'm not 100% certain. The only thing we don't have is a reason for them doing what they did. One thing that we do know is that to some degree that one of their Primarchs is probably dead, and their other Primarch has either assumed the mantle of Alpharius, or they are also dead as well and there is no Primarch left for the Alpha Legion. It's a bit complicated. The Alpha Legion does have a tendency during the Horus Heresy and earlier than that to refer to themselves as Alpharius in order to confuse other people in Marines, just because, their Primarchs are pretty short, though this isn't 100% of the time, as much as, the fan base would like you to assume. Now, the Alpha Legion in Dawn of War, none of them refer to themselves as Alpharius, which is really, really funny, but much like other traders in 40k, when you destroy the command structure of what they had pre-heresy, they tend to trickle down into small war groups, which just tends to happen with these kinds of things. And you had people who were previously praetors, captains, centurions, or whatever weird-ass snake-themed rank that the Alpha Legion tended to give their commanding officers, staking their claim as leader of a small fiefdom and then being like, hey, I am the bestest that there ever was, and I'm the coolest snake that ever lived, so therefore I now own this specific warband of people. And, if you start glowing and shooting snakes out of your hands like Spiderman, but from a fucked up universe where he shoots snakes out of his wrists instead of webbing. I had a joke here, but I lost it. I'm sorry. I genuinely, my train of thought just crashed midway there. But regardless, if you see these warbands pop up, it's because a Centurion staked their claim and now owns just a group of 100 to 1,000 Marines, and they're just going around doing raiding shit. But with the Alpha Legion, it's a lot weirder. They don't go around doing things without reason, and there is a theory that there really isn't any actual warbands, just warbands pretending to be warbands, as they are all acting as one big legion still, but accomplishing independent goals. See, when the Alpha Legion shows up and it's not from their perspective in the story, you tend to see some shit that makes you really, really goddamn paranoid. I would like to remind you that there was a moment in a very recent storyline that the Alpha Legion massacred an entire town of wannabe priests and an ecclesiarchical training facility, leaving only one priest alive after seeing him and simply saying, nah, that's the guy. This guy would later go on to inherit a portion of the Emperor's spirit and save Roboute Guilliman's life from Mortarion during one of the most important battles in the Imperium's history, which, yeah, I can guarantee you the Alpha Legion saw this shit coming. They have a thing for seeing the future, and that's also incredibly suspicious that no one brings that up for some reason, but it's not like I haven't brought this up about like 20,000 times on this channel, but regardless, I think that the Alpha Legion in the modern lore is often overstated but underestimated, while also being overestimated at the same time. Subterfuge from the perspective of a Space Marine is impressive, yes, but you also have to realize that Space Marines are a lot smarter than most people give them credit. A Space Marine can think as good as any other Space Marine, and I can guarantee you an Alpha Legionnaire is not the smartest Space Marine that's out there. Other Space Marines can outthink them, and even still, they can be thwarted. Everybody is fallible. All humans are fallible, and to some degree, Space Marines are human. So you can't trick a Space Marine 100% of the time, but that being said, the Alpha Legion does operate on another level. Another way to understand their chapter or their warband or their legion or whatever they are, because they could be loyalist or they could be heretics in any way whatsoever, they're weird, is to note that they do operate in small sleeper cells a lot of time, with singular Marines or maybe small pods of Marines recruiting humans and even brainwashing loyalist Marines to operate under code words that would activate them to perform a specific task. Now, sometimes they will take loyalist guardsmen and then just brainwash them and usually brand them with the tattoo of a serpent in order to show their allegiance to anybody who would attack them. But individually, this is a very important tactic because it allows them to spread out their influence more so than just having garrisons of Marines. They could just slowly infect and have these pinpoint strikes from Marines that would just detonate, or pinpoint strikes from Guardsmen that could just set off explosive charges at the utterance of a phrase. This is why the Alpha Legion are seen as a bit of a meme and seen as a bit of an odd Space Marine chapter, as they don't really operate like any other Space Marine. They operate as sort of a loose-handed, poisonous strike. They don't bleed you out quickly. They don't go for the throat. They simply inject you with the slowest time-release poison possible. Though one of the phrases that a lot of people tend to use with them is they're going to bleed you dry. It will take a long time, but they will bleed you dry. In a long-term engagement, they are probably the most annoying Space Marine chapter or warband or legion to go against, just because you never know who they are. See my Alfarius video to understand why they're also one of the scariest chapters to go up against. Regardless, this is kind of all the basics you need to know. They are an espionage, they are an infiltration, and they are a weird subterfuge style of chapter that tends to get the job done in ways that normal Space Marines usually wouldn't. So now that you have a basic understanding of them, we can go into a brief plot synopsis of Dawn of War. Dawn of War 1's story is pretty simple, but very well executed. I think one of the reasons why it's so popular is because its story, although again pretty basic, is just very well done. It's a little hokey, and there's maybe 5 voice actors amongst the entire cast, and all of them are playing multiple characters. I do have a fun little aside involving Sindri that is very unique to me specifically, but we'll get there. I promise. We will get there. But I'm just going to try and sum up the entire plot of this game in like 10 to 15 minutes, so be patient with me. The story of Dawn of War is literally the most bread and butter GW thing I've ever heard, and probably all of you have ever heard, ever, where they basically just attempt to get every available and popular faction involved in the tabletop game to promote sales involved in the game's story to some degree. And in the first version of Dawn of War, you have the standards, you know, Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Eldar, Orcs, and Chaos Space Marines. The plot is simple. On the planet of Tartarus, the Blood Raven Space Marine chapter was called in order to support the local guardsman regiment in order to reclaim the planet from a massive orc war that had sort of just snowballed out of control. Think Armageddon, but they're probably not winning this one, actually. Your focal point is an individual by the name of Gabriel Angelos, a stoic, stern, and steely-voiced Marine who is the captain of the 3rd Company. Fresh off of ordering an exterminatus on his original homeworld of Cyrene, he is haunted by the ghosts of his past, and also just really doesn't like orcs. So, he is here to kick ass, take names, and so on, accompanied by a small army, as well as his best friend and battle brother, Isidore, a librarian from the chapter. The orcs, led by... No, this can't be real. I refuse to believe that is the name of this fucking man. You're fucking with me, right? Huh. Led by war boss Orcamungus, who is intending to get into the biggest scrap of his entire life, as well as his entire army's life. See, that's the main plot of the first third of the game. Just that, where Space Marines fixate on shooting as many greenskins as humanly possible, but there is something horrible under the skin, and it turns out the Alpha Legion that I mentioned before, is specifically a very chaos-y version of the Alpha Legion, are on Tartarus and have in fact bribed the orc war boss, Orcamungus, I'm not getting over that, with as many weapons and pieces of armor as they can stomach to distract the Space Marines, the Guard, and so on and so forth, while the Chaos Space Marines look for a very powerful Chaos artifact. Led by the Chaos Lord Bale and his sidekick, a Chaos Sorcerer by the name of Sindri Mir, who are both voiced by the same guy, who, by the way, is also the voice of Dinobot from Transformers Beast Wars and Grumpy Bear from Care Bears. Isn't that just fucking wild? But yeah, Scott McNeil has a lot of conversations with himself in this game, as he is kind of responsible for maybe a third of the voices in this game, but whatever. Once the veil of secrecy about what's actually going on is dropped, and the Space Marines find out that the orcs are just a distraction, the Eldar show up. Who the f*** cares? You find out that there is an intensely powerful demon artifact on this planet. Who would have thought? Tartarus, a prison for something terribly evil? Crazy. The Alpha Legion are trying to get it for some reason. Eventually, as the plot progresses through trials and tribulations, an Inquisitor shows up, mysteriously, I mind you, to tell them that there is a warp storm about to consume this entire planet and leave them basically stranded here for over 100 years. So, everyone needs to leave, and soon. But we are not here to be pussies. We gotta deal with whatever demon artifact known as the Maledictum is before we head out. Thus is the Space Marine Code. Oh, by the way, your brother Isidore? Yeah, he gets corrupted by Sindri, the Chaos Sorcerer, who pretty much since minute 1 of Isidore hitting the planet's surface was just getting whispered in the ear to betray the Blood Ravens in order to use the Maledictum to fight for the Emperor and totally not get corrupted by Chaos. Totally. Sindri and Lord Bale perform rituals unknown, but here is where shit gets weird. Sindri eventually turns his back on Lord Bale, having him get killed by the Blood Ravens, but he then proceeds to chant chaos ritual magic spells for Khorne, the Blood God. A sorcerer is chanting a Khorne magical psychic ritual for Khorne, the Blood God. Okay, that is to be discussed, but basically there is a Chaos Greater Demon of Khorne stuck inside the Maledictum that Sindri, who is apparently pledged to Khorne, maybe, probably Chaos Undivided, but it's very weird that he chose Khorne this one time, wants to break open for favor, fortune, and what have you, which is also very interesting to think about. Sindri is basically the final antagonist as he kills Isidore, after Isidore does some honestly pretty cool monologuing about how the gods recognize his strength because he's a very powerful, I don't know. Isidore, dead, killed by Gabriel, very sad. Sindri pleased Khorne so much and absorbed so much power from the Maledictum, that's also just a magic chaos rock, that he became a demon prince, which is odd. I'm like 90% certain Khorne hates Psychers, but whatever, let's ignore that for now. With the combined might of Gabriel Angelos, captain of the Third Company, the Imperial Guard, some inquisitorial help, with the Inquisitor giving Gabriel a magic demon hammer by the name of Godsplitter, which is an awesome name, he was able to banish Sindri the demon prince back into the warp and secure the Maledictum, of which, under much scrutiny by the Eldar, but you know, when are we not being scrutinized by the Eldar, he was able to smash it to pieces with the hammer, which was a bad idea, actually. Because due to the death of Sindri and a bunch of every other person that died within the weird, bloody circle that the Maledictum was in, the demon inside, instead of being killed, was actually freed. Basically, he just released a bloodthirster into reality that should not have been there. The Blood Ravens get off the planet, vowing vengeance on that demon who tricked them, and they do pretty aptly. You know, few sequels to come. Everyone lived happily ever after, except when the third game hit and then everybody hated it in the end. Okay, that's pretty much everything you need to know. I probably just made fans of this specific game's head explode, but you know, we had to rush through it a little bit to get to where I'm talking about. Before I get into the wrap-up of this video, here's some fun Arthur lore. I actually met Scott McNeil in person at my local convention and got him to sign my 8th edition Chaos Demons Codex as Sindri Mir. It's kind of cool, which would have been cool on its own, because he's actually a very charismatic and very funny individual who was born with a cowboy hat on, but I'm just gonna let you know it didn't stop there. Basically, after every single time me and my friends go to the specific convention, we go to a local sports bar and just kind of shoot the shit and talk about what we did. Lo and behold, the Grumpy Bear himself walks in and recognizes most of our group and then comes to sit at our table, and he just starts sharing stories about what it's like living where he's at. He has a couple drinks in his hands. Dude is just honestly really cool. I was kind of starstruck at the time because he just was such a down-to-earth, very cool guy. I'd never really met a voice actor under those conditions before, but yeah. This dude was pretty damn real and pretty damn neat. And when he left, he wanted to try and remember everyone's name, so he kind of tried to commit to it. Another fun fact about this is he was also trying to learn the local accent, which is one of the more unique accents you'll find on planet Earth, as it's a mixture of Acadian French, Scottish, and alcoholism. So hearing him practice was really funny. Regardless, Arthur lore out of the way, you know the story of Dawn of War, and you probably have some questions about what I just recited to you, and most of that is pretty insane, even by the standards of the Alpha Legion being able to accomplish some weird shit. There are some inaccuracies in there, but we'll cover that in a second. But let's just get into the actual reason as to why it is weird in this final section. The idea as to why this is weird, shouldn't really come to a shock to most of you. It's like looking at a gray sludge bubbling in a cauldron in some RPG you're playing. The shitty, almost gray brownishness and consistency issues of it isn't really what we're here for. It's really the flavor that we're after of this hag's brew. I'm interested in finding out and sticking my finger in and seeing if it comes back just a cartoonish skeleton, you know? So when you take a spoonful of it, the funny part is about the Alpha Legion in this specific metaphor is that it fit, weirdly enough, tasted like a half-decent chicken pot pie. Surprising, not exactly fantastic, but also mostly just confusing. Firstly, the Alpha Legion is, in this game, have dropped all pretense and are in fact just chaos-worshipping lunatics obsessed with the growth of their own power, outright killing servants and slaves that displease them or just for funsies, which, considering a lot of the lore states, a lot of the Alpha Legion kind of keeps the chaos on the down low. It's a little weird, but it might just be these guys being weird. Then you have them somehow being able to parlay with an orc war boss long enough for them to actually get a functional and mutually beneficial deal going on both sides. That's kind of nuts, which makes me question if it is in fact possible for you to negotiate with greenskins. Like, I know they only want to fight, and if betraying you would mean they get a better scrap out of the deal, then they would likely do it, but the idea that the Chaos Space Marines of the Alpha Legion of all people would be able to get their foot in the door, let alone convince the orcs to do something that they didn't truly want, it's kind of lunacy. Secondly, the fact that they had almost zero stealth or espionage tactics throughout the game, aside from Sindri Mir being the ultimate in psychic assholishness, though I will state him being what he was kind of on brand, yet for some reason he just proved to be the most Alpha Legion-y character in the entirety of the setting at this point. It made up for pretty much everybody else being screaming berserkers, but you know, he was able to magically seduce an entire brigade of Imperial Guardsmen to fight for the side of the Alpha Legion. He's being able to psychically with Isidore, who was part of a chapter known for having a particularly strong psychers, being able to also make a pact with Khorne, who notoriously hates psychers, which, fellas, let's, key in on that a bit here. The demon stored in the Maledictum was a bloodthirster. Cool, right? Make a deal with Khorne to release it, but Khorne hates psychers. That is the domain of Tzeentch, after all, which makes a lot of sense, but here is the thing. Somehow it still works, with Sindri unironically chanting blood for the blood god in the game, which usually is an immediate death sentence for anybody who can't bench 2 plates, which is kind of what psychers are known for. Regardless, this somehow works, and Sindri gets the blessings of all the gods and becomes a demon prince of what I assume is Chaos Undivided, though it would have been really, really interesting if he turned out completely bright red and became a full-on demon prince of Khorne. I would have fucking lost my mind. The level of wacky hijinks that happen in this game is so against what the fandom sees as possible with the Alpha Legion, as I think that we need to take kind of a step back and breathe in a deep breath and realize that this shit is just really cool. Yeah, sorry to kind of mess with your headcanon, but dudes, the Alpha Legion are a Chaos Traitor faction for a reason. And honestly, this is probably the most canon representation we have of them in the modern day as such. Are there other reps that have come out since? Yeah, but I always go back to this one, as I kind of love people arguing that they're secretly not Chaos Marines when you have Lord Bale over here and his glowing neck. Yeah, he's pretty chaosy. I like them. I like this game. And for a lot of people in the fandom, this game represents kind of a milestone of creation, you know? It's literally the game that got quite a lot of people into 40k initially back in the early 2000s because of how fun it was. It was simple. There was no major characters to focus on. It was grimy, and sure, you had Gabriel Angelos, but he was just basically a normal Space Marine captain as far as the models in game would go, and he was just a really cool character. But I don't give a shit about the superhero mega characters. I have quoted the Dreadnought dialogues in this game so often that it is almost concerning, though all of it has been when I woke up, and if you know the dialogues I'm talking about, you get it. I think we hold on to this idea of the Alpha Legion as a meme so much that when we see them be Chaos Marines, it comes off as an absolutely bizarre sight, which I will state, the whole Khorne sorcerer thing is quite bizarre, but you know what? They do their best. I think the Alpha Legion warband in this game are pretty cool. I think they are one of the reasons why I have always had a healthy respect for the Alpha Legion, as it's kind of my first time being exposed to them. They are weird because they break a lot of the rules of 40k. They are weird because even when they break the rules of the canon, they do it in the most Alpha Legion way possible, while also resembling the least Alpha Legion style of warband that they possibly could be. Anyway, let me ask you guys something. Do you guys have any particularly fond memories of the games? Let me know in the comments. Weirdly enough, I have played them way later into my career of playing 40k games than I probably should have, considering it's such a landmark game. So I want to see what you guys have to say. Special thanks to my channel members for supporting me, and if you wish to support me as well as support the channel and make sure that my videos keep coming at a steady pace, then become a channel member today. It pays my bills, keeps me fed, and also keeps my editors from turning into a dried up desiccated husk. So that's cool. Thank you all again for watching, and before I go, if I may, one thing I always wanted to talk about but never truly understood until I had to replay this game was why I hated the Eldar, and having replayed this game in preparation for this video, I realized that my hatred for the Eldar started here. Follow me, walk with me, talk with me. I just want to say that the Eldar in this game fucking suck. They suck a lot. They suck so much that actively playing this game makes me hate them more, and no, this has nothing to do with the Eldar Warlocks being able to zip-zap my Marines into ash with very little balance involved. It has everything to do with how they act during the storyline. Hold my hand a minute as I gaze lovingly into your eyes and tell you there are so many problems the Eldar could have avoided if they just spoke fucking directly in the game. It pisses me off. Literally, most of the main conflict could have been avoided when Farseer f***ears over there just decided to show up, and instead of being very beat around the bush, they just said, there is a demon in that funny looking rock, we would like to keep it in the rock. But no, they had to beat around the bush the entire time and trust that they knew better. Fuck me, man. I fucking hate the Eldar because of this game, and this feels horrible. I know it's a me thing. I know who I am. I am almost uncomfortably direct with people when I have to convey important information, and issues I have with them are usually dealt with quite promptly. So when I deal with someone who won't cut to the heart of the matter, when there's quite literally the entire world at stake, I get a little pissed off, and fuck off, Pancreas No Work. I don't give a shit if you like the Eldar. I'm still leading 2-0 in our little old world Warhammer escalation league, so you can't say shit. But oh yeah, you're just waiting to field stronger Tomb Kings. Oh, you can't get any of your weird scorpions on the board right now because they've been sold out. Yeah, such is the power of Nagash, more like such is the power of my nutsack.